Kusa. When you hear the word autism, what comes to your mind upon hearing the word autism? Ano agad yung pumapasok sa isip niyo once na narinig yung salitang autism? Anyone? Sakit, according to Daryl, okay. What else? How, aside from sakit or illness or disorder or disability, ano agad yung pumapasok sa isip natin kapag naririnig natin yung salitang autism? Eh, most of the people think once na makakarinig ng autism, may diferensya sa pag-iisip, it can be, no, sabi niya autistic, di ba ang tawag kumbaga. Okay, so the story that we are going to tackle, an excerpt, okay, has something to do with a boy named Christopher, okay, who suffers from an ASD or an autism spectrum disorder. Okay, with that illness or disorder of him, okay, it makes him a strange one. And that is the real world issue that we're going to tackle, not being strange. So, ano nga ba yung tinatawag nating ASD? Okay, or yung tinatawag nating autism spectrum disorder. So when we say autism spectrum disorder or ASD, it is a complex set of neurological disorders that severely impair social, communicative, as well as cognitive functions. Okay? So meaning meron siyang disorder pagdating sa social, na communicative, okay, sa communication, as well as cognitive functions. That's why sa pag-iisip. It suffers from cognitive impairments, no? Although some have typical or above average IQs. So most of the ASD person or autism person or autistic person, di ba? Meron silang above average IQ. Okay? Minsan talagang meron silang talent, gifted. Okay? So meron silang inclination, no, towards something. Typically is the behaviors, okay, ay ginagawa itong mga bagay na to. Hand flapping, okay, so pinaflap nila yung hand nila. Body rocking, insistence of sameness, no resistance to change, minsan aggressive or aggression, at minsan self-injury o sinasaktan yung sarili. And autism, okay, so sadly, so when it comes to ASD, it cannot be treated, meaning there is no cure for autism spectrum disorder. Okay, so between 30% not to 50% of people with autism now is having a seizure. Okay, so you know what seizure is naman, no? So that is autism spectrum disorder. Again, sadly, there is no cure. Okay, wala pong cure for ASD. Now, so this excerpt by Mark Haddon, entitled The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, is an example of a protagonist named Christopher who suffers from a mild ASD, okay, and autism spectrum disorder, okay, wherein merong isang dog na namatay on a certain lawn or backyard, no, of their neighbor, and then nakita niya yun that dog was hit by a fork, okay, and then patay na yung aso, and then binigay niya sa may-ari, okay, and then may-ari, siya ang pinagbintangan na pumatay doon sa dog. Okay, so dun umikot yung kwento. But this one, this is just an excerpt. Okay, so I will read it first, so before the summary of the entire novel. It's a novel kasi, no? So that's why excerpt lang siya. The curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. By the way, yung Sayoban here is a person. Sayoban is an 8-year-old kid way back. Okay, and he is a friend of Christopher, which is the protagonist of the story. Okay, first person point of view to. Yes, Christopher yung nagsasalita. Okay, which is the protagonist. I find people confusing. Okay? He finds people confusing. Now, bakit kaya? This is for two main reasons. Meron siyang two main reasons. Okay, kung bakit sinasabi niya that people are confusing. Okay, this is a story in the mind of a person suffering from ASD, an autism spectrum disorder. Okay, syempre meron silang impairment or illness or disorder sa pag-iisip, so that's why ganito din sila mag-isip. Okay, sabi niya, I find people confusing. This is for two main reasons. So ang first main reason niya is that people do a lot of talking without using any words. Okay? So people now do a lot of talking without using any words, meaning a non-verbal communication, di ba? Gestures only. Sayuban, okay, again, Sayuban is his friend. Sayuban says that if you raise one eyebrow, it can mean lots of different things. It can mean I want to do sex with you. Okay, kapag i-raise lang daw yung eyebrow. And it can also mean I think that what you just said was very stupid. Okay, so with those gestures, okay, it's just simply raising one eyebrow of yours. Okay, and it has a lot of different things now, a lot of different meanings. Okay, so it can be I want to do sex with you, or I think that what you just said was very stupid. Okay, so it's in just having a eyebrow raising. Okay, that's one. Kaya sinasabi niyang nako-confuse siya for the people. Ayuban also says that if you close your mouth and breathe out loudly through your nose, okay, para ka nag-exhale, parang gano'n, napabuntong hininga, it can mean that you are relaxed. Okay, at some point, it can also mean that you are bored. Okay, and also it can mean that you are angry or angry. Okay, and it all depends on how much air comes out of your nose and how fast and what shape your mouth is when you do it and how you are sitting and what you said just before and hundred of other things which are too complicated to work out in a few seconds. Okay, without simply having a closer mouth, breathing out loudly through your nose. No, marami din daw to meaning. It can mean a lot. It can be relaxed, it can be bored, it can be an angry, and it will depend so on how much air comes out of your nose. Okay, so may point naman siya doon. Second main reason, again, the first main reason na sinabi niya is people do a lot of talking without using any words. Meaning, non-verbal communications. Those gestures, no? Yung butong hininga, tsaka yung eyebrow raising. Eyebrow raising. The second main reason daw is that people often talk using metaphors. Okay? So yung mga metaphors natin na ginagamit. Okay, so these are example of metaphors. I laughed my socks off. He was the apple of her eye. Okay? So para itong mga idioms niya kung tutuusin yung metaphors na ito. They had a skeleton in the cupboard. We had a real pig of a day. The dog was stone dead. Okay, so ginagamit kasi ito ng mga tao especially for expressions, for casual conversations, or for informal conversations. So the word metaphor means carrying something from one place to another, and it comes from the Greek word which means from one place to another, and this one which means to carry. So it is when you describe something by using a word for something that isn't. This means that the word metaphor now is a metaphor. I think it should be called a lie. Instead of metaphor daw, according to Christopher, syempre in the mind of in the mind of a person having an ASD or autism spectrum disorder, sabi niya dapat tong tawaging lie, hindi metaphor. Bakit daw? Because pig is not like a day and people do not have skeletons in their cupboards. Okay, so the protagonist, Christopher, takes it in a literal sense. Okay, that's why daw lie yun. Kasi nga wala naman daw skeleton yung cupboard. Okay? And when I try and make picture of the phrase in my head, it just confuses me. Because imagining an apple in someone's eye doesn't have anything to do with liking someone a lot, and it makes you forget what the person was talking about. Okay? So, di ba kasi pag sinabi nating it was an apple of her eye, okay, meaning gusto mo siya, natutuwa ka pag nakikita mo siya. Okay? So sa kanya naman is something that is literal in its sense. Okay? Someone's eye, no, ay meron talagang apple sa mata niya. So para sa kanya, it doesn't have anything to do with liking someone. Kasi nga may apple na nga literal on her eyes, then magugustuhan mo pa siya. Okay? So ganun siya mag-step. So my name is a metaphor. It means carrying Christ and it comes from the Greek words which means Jesus Christ. Kasi Christopher siya. Okay? So yung pangalan niya din daw is a metaphor, which means carrying Christ, and it comes from the Greek word, which means Jesus Christ. And it was the name given to Saint Christopher because he carried Jesus Christ across a river. So this makes you wonder what he was called before he carried Christ across the river. But he wasn't called anything because this is an apocryphal story, which means that is a lie too. Mother used to say that it meant Christopher was a nice name because it was a story about being kind and helpful. But I do not want my name to mean a story about being kind and helpful. I want my name to mean me. Okay? So according to Christopher, ayaw niya his name, okay, which will mean no a story about or being kind and helpful, pero gusto niya yung pangalan niya would mean na siya mismo, kung ano siya mismo. Okay? So that is just an excerpt no, of the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. So this is a novel kasi so napakahaba niya. Yeah, so to give you tawag dito, a gist of it, okay, of the entire novel. So the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. Okay, so just like what I've said, Christopher Boone. Okay, Boone ang apelido niya, Boone, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so siya ay, gaya nga sabi kanina, they are gifted, di ba? At some point, they are above average when it comes to their IQ. So Christopher Boone is a mathematically gifted no boy of 15. Meron siyang Asperger's syndrome. Okay? So mamaya titignan natin ano ba yung Asperger's syndrome. Okay? So he sees a dog lying on the grass in front of his neighbor's house no, with a fork sticking out of it. Sabi ko nga kanina, nakita niyo yung aso patay na merong fork. Okay? Yung fork na malaki ha, hindi yung fork na maliit. Yung pang kuha ng mga dayami yung hay. He goes over to hug the dog and soon the neighbor Mrs. Shears, okay, yung may-ari na aso ay si Mrs. Shears, no, emerges from her house screaming. She thinks Christopher has killed the dog. Kaya iniisip kayo ni Mrs. Shears na si Christopher ang pumatay dun sa aso kasi karya-karya niya. No, without knowing na gusto lang ipakita ni what you call this one, Christopher sa kanya na namatay yung aso niya, okay, na hindi siya ang may kasalanan. So now with that, the police arrive. No, and Christopher is taken to the station. No, and shortly after, his father arrives to testify for Christopher and take him home. So the strange death of Wellington, Wellington yung pangalan ng aso ha. So the strange death of Wellington prompts Christopher to search for his killer. Okay, so having an autism spectrum disorder or an what we call this one, an Asperger's syndrome. Okay, so confused ngayon si Wellington. Si Wellington, si Christopher rather, about the death of Wellington. So gusto niya ngayong mag-conduct ng parang investigation on his own, not to search for the killer. Kasi nga, di ba siya yung pinagbibintangan. So as a school assignment, Christopher's class is told to write a story. Okay, so on her school, okay, meron silang assignment na kailangan nilang magkwento ng story. Okay, and then inspired by this, he decides to write a detective story. Okay, and that detective story is the very one we are reading. The curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. So these are the major conflicts, the rising actions, falling actions of the story. Okay, so ang setting muna niya is around Swindon in England, no, with a trip to London, England. So protagonist, just like what I've said, is Christopher John Francis Boone. So the major conflict there, Christopher's investigation of Wellington's murder leads him to uncover a number of secrets about his parents, causing him to lose his trust in father and to set out to London in search of mother. Okay? The major conflict nito, no, upon having an investigation no, of himself, no, kung sinong pumatay kay Wellington, which is the dog, okay? Eh, marami siyang natuklasan about sa kanilang family or about sa kanyang parents. Okay, those secrets na meron palang mga affair. Okay, kina Mrs. Shears, yung kapitbahay nila. Okay, her father, his father has an affair to Mrs. Shears and her mother has an affair to Mr. Shears. Okay, and her father and his father rather told him no that that his mother was already dead. But at the bottom part and the latter part of the story, eh, he knew that her mother or his mother was already was what you said was not dead. Okay, and all and it's alive. Okay, and kasama sila ni Mr. Shields. Okay, so meron silang affair both. Okay, so with their neighbors. The rising action naman dito, as Christopher investigates Wellington's murder, he learns that mother, eto, and Mr. Shear had an affair. Meaning yung nanay niya tsaka yung sa kapitbahay nila si Mr. Shear merong affair. And then father ni Christopher at saka naman asawa ni Mr. Shear, si Mrs. Shears, no, also had an affair. They share each other. No, that mother is alive as well and father has been lying about her death. No, sabi kasi sa kanya nung una na kanyang father napatay na daw yung mother niya. And that father killed Wellington because he was angry with Mrs. Shears. Okay? So, meaning si father ang pumatay kay Wellington at the end. Okay? So, Wellington is the dog. Okay, the name of the dog. So, ang climax nito is, after a harrowing journey on his own to London, in which he must overcome the limits of his condition, Christopher reunites with his mother. Okay, so Christopher decided to go to his mother. So following action is Christopher moves in with her mother, with his mother, successfully completes his A-level test in math, and begins to reestablish trust with father. The A-level test in math here is a metaphor. Okay, so it tells about the struggles, okay, the logic of the puzzle, no, and the struggles that he has experienced or he had experienced. He recalls all that he has accomplished over the course of the novel and sets out a series of goals for the future. Okay, so at the end of the story, he finds out that her father is the one who killed Wellington. Okay, and then he decided to go to to his mother. Okay, knowing that his mother is still alive. Okay, and then that's it. Okay, so that's the story of the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime until, okay, uh, he sets, Christopher Boone sets out a series of goals for the future para sa sarili. Yeah. Ito yung tinatawag kaninang Asperger's syndrome. So when you say Asperger's syndrome, it is also known as Asperger's. Okay. So it is a neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by significant difficulties, okay, in social interaction and nonverbal communication. Meaning Asperger's syndrome, meron silang disorder na nahihirapan sila na makipag-interact socially as well as communicate nonverbally, no, along with restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior and interest. So that is what we call Asperger's syndrome kung saan merong ganito si Christopher Francis Booth. Okay? So this is a kind of ASD, no? An autism spectrum disorder. Okay, which is not curable. So these naman are characterization. So when you say characterization, these are literary devices, no, by which the writer reveals the personality of a character. So meron tayong tinatawag na direct at indirect characterization. So what is the difference between the two? When we say direct characterization, it tells reader's character. Okay, example nito is ito, directly telling no, what is the character of the reader. What is the character of the protagonist or the character? No, it directly tells the reader. She was a cheery, always upbeat person. Okay, so direct mismo sa sinasabi sa kwento, no, upon reading it, she was a cheery, always upbeat person. Okay, so that is a direct characterization. When we say indirect naman, indirect characterization, it shows no the reader character. Okay, pinapakita lang. Okay, kung ano yung character nung tawag dito, nung protagonist mo niyan o ng main character. Her lighthouse smile beaconed across the crowd. Okay? Her lighthouse smile. Okay, so dito ang gamit si she kasi nga meron tayong direct. Dito naman indirect, her ang gamit. Okay, her lighthouse smile. Okay, dinidescribe yung smile as a lighthouse. Okay, dito naman talagang direct. She was a cheery. Okay, dito naman is indirect. Okay? So dito naman, again, pag sinabing direct, gives broad sweep. You can summarize personality in a line. Okay? So pwede mo nang i-summarize yung personality or characterization o character ng isang main character or characters in the story into just a one line, gaya nito. Okay? Pwede naman sa indirect, it can use as cumulative detail. Okay? Actions, words, chess, other details build up a portrait. Okay? So meaning dito parang mas detailed. Okay, puwede mong tawag dito, i-describe yung dress niya mismo, okay, yung ano kanyang actions, the words of the character. Once again, 'pag sinabing direct, useful for first details, 'no? So, concise, broad details are easier to remember. Ito namang indirect is useful for development. Characters, deeds, and words add up, give complex growth. Okay, so sa mga indirect characterization natin, ito yung mga medyo malalim, okay, na adjectives na ginagamit minsan. Okay, pag sabi naman direct, okay, it is more on a specific or particular adjective ang ginagamit, no, to describe something. So meron tayong types of characters, 'di ba? We have tackled this naman na last meeting on your basic elements of short story, if I'm not mistaken. So flat, round, dynamic, and static. Just a review. Sinabing flat, it reveals only one, maybe two personality traits in a story or novel. Okay? So in these traits or characteristics does not change. So when we say round character naman, a well-developed character, it demonstrates varied and sometimes contradictory traits. Okay? So meaning nagbabago naman pag kay round. Okay? So nagbago siya sa dulo. Dynamic. When we say dynamic changes during the course of a story or novel, the change in outlook or character is permanent. Static naman, events in the story do not alter a static character's outlook, personality, motivation, perception, habits, etc. Okay, so this is just a review. These are the types of the characters. Okay, flat, round, dynamic, and static. All right, so that would be the end. Again, that is the third world, real world issues, which is being exchanged. Okay, entitled the story Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon, okay, which focus on an ASD or autism spectrum disorder, the of the protagonist named Christopher Francis Boone. Okay, so again, pag sinabing ASD, there is no cure no for ASD. Okay, so it cannot be treated. When we say ASD, it is impaired or severely impaired social, communicative, and cognitive functions. Okay, they suffer from cognitive impairments. Okay, and then some of them have an above average IQ. Okay, yung curious incident na to, is-rip natin. Okay, so Christopher finds people confusing for two main reasons. What are those again? So this is first main reason is people do a lot of talking, okay, without using any words or using non-verbal communication. And the second reason was people often talk using metaphors. Okay, so tatandaan niyo yun. Now, for your activity, I would like you to go to your Gen account and look for 21st Century Lit Lesson Autism Spectrum Disorder. It's the lesson package. Nandito na rin yung inyong activity together with the PowerPoint presentation here. Okay, before you start, I would like to say how to instruct you further. Okay, so this is a 15-item activity only. So 1 to 5 is multiple choice. Okay, 1 point each. And then numbers 6 and 7, okay, are essay type. So 5 points each with these two for a total of 15 points. Okay, so I would like you to ponder on this activity. Huwag madaliin. Okay, pakisagutan ng ayos. Okay, so you have enough time to do this. Once the Zoom meeting has ended, no need for you to rejoin. Just continue doing your activity. Okay, so you may now start answering your activity. Just kindly start answering your activity. No? So once the Zoom meeting has ended, no need for you to rejoin. Just continue answering your activity. And then if you have enough time, pakisagutan pa yung mga nakaraan nating activity. So konti pa lang ang gumagawa. Especially for those who have an incomplete activities and quizzes, no? Mahihirapan na kayo humabol at wala na kayong pag-asang humabol once it was ended. Okay? Kasi wala na tayong susunod pang quarter.